morning, everybody. Welcome to today's 1 million by 1 million strategy roundtable for entrepreneurs. 1M, as you know, is the first and only global virtual accelerator in the world. Our mission is to help 1 million entrepreneurs reach $1 million and beyond in annual revenue. In support of that mission, we do these free mentoring roundtables every week. This is the 548th session, and over probably a couple of 100,000 people have participated in these sessions since 2008, when we started first experimenting with this. It was a long time ago, and the world was different. The entrepreneurship ecosystem was different, and we've learned a lot since. Things have evolved a lot, and one of the things that we tried to do up front at that point has today happened. You know, the globalization of startups has happened. And that's wonderful to see. You know, at that time, we had not yet launched 1 million by 1 million. We launched that in 2010. And, you know, it's been a very long journey of doing this systematic work on entrepreneurship development with a lot of consistency. So this event is being recorded. You will find every single recording of our roundtables on the 1M1M Roundtables channel, YouTube channel. So look it up. On Twitter, we're at 1M1M, and that's Romana. We have a couple of big things going on right now. One is the DataStax 1M1M Startup Challenge is going on. And this is for developers developing on the Cassandra, DataStax Enterprise, or Astra DB platforms. And winners will be getting $10,000, 1 year all-inclusive license to the entire DataStax Astra DB portfolio, and a 1 year scholarship to the 1M1M Premium Program. Clarification, people who are existing customers of DataStax, Astra DB, or Cassandra and are already, you know, you have validated use cases, you're very welcome to apply. The 1M1M Premium Program would be a good place for you to come to and potentially seek financing and other kinds of guidance through the program. Even if you have like 1 or 2 customers, it's actually better. It's easier to raise money with a bit of a validated customer situation. Application deadline is October 28th, and we'll announce on November 11th at the roundtable here. So that's the plan. Application, the link is on your screen. Maureen can put the application link also on the public chat. The other big thing that has happened last week is Freshworks has gone public. Freshworks was incubated in 1 million by 1 million between 2011 and 2013. They were in the program for 3 years, and since last year they did about $250 million in revenue, and they have a lot of customers, like 70,000 customers around the world. It's kind of like a made in Chennai case study, so part of that globalization of startup success story. I wrote a piece covering that, including the historical experience we had with this company, as well as entrepreneurship development, globalization of startups, all of that. Maureen, would you please share that also in the public chat for people to take a look at, maybe afterwards. It's very satisfying to see something so major come to fruition. It takes time to build companies. DataStax went public at a 10 billion plus valuation. The stock is fluctuating, but has continued to rise above the IPO price. So the valuation has gone up further. So it's a very, very interesting thing to see happen. But remember, one thing we always stress is that 1 million by 1 million, our agenda of helping 1 million entrepreneurs is not just to raise money and build, these unicorn-style successes. We're also perfectly happy to help you with the bootstrapping stage. And if you want to bootstrap your company, if you have a smaller idea, and you're executing on that, we are happy to help you with all of that. The other big thing that has happened is we have done a lot of work on Udemy this summer. So we have released 28 courses based on the 1M by1M curriculum, shorter courses for Udemy, and we will be releasing more. We will continue to release throughout the next 18 months. But there's a lot of the 1M by1M methodology that will be available on Udemy. Again, part of our democratization of entrepreneurship education mission. So that's kind of giving you an overview of what's happening in the 1M by1M community right now. Today, we have a wonderful guest, Lloyed Lobo, co-founder and president of Boast.ai. Lloyd, welcome to the show. I'm looking forward to getting to know you and understanding what you are doing and brainstorming with our audience on what you're doing.
Definitely. Thanks for having me. I've been a longstanding fan of your show and excited to be on finally.
Where are you from?
I am a combination of things. I grew up in Kuwait. My parents are from India, and you know, from a place called Mangalore.
Okay, very good.
In India, where there were like, I guess, remnants of the Portuguese flying in from Goa or kind
Yes.
of thing.
I
So I
spent
have
a
a
wonderful
very
vacation with my parents in Goa just before the pandemic. It was really nice.
definitely, yeah. So yeah, so I think my family was from there. My mom grew up in Mumbai, my dad grew up in Mangalore. But I was born in Kuwait and then moved to Canada, did engineering there, and I was a refugee of the Gulf War in the 90s. We then, a
Mm,
few years after, moved to Canada, and then after engineering in 2006, moved to the United States.
okay. And what part of the US are you working out of right now?
I'm in the Bay Area. I'm in
Oh,
Castro
great.
Valley.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
wonderful. All
Are
right.
you in the Bay
So
Area as well?
I'm in Menlo Park, yeah, right off Sandal Road.
Nice.
I've been in the Bay Area for a long time. So let's talk about Boast.ai. What is the genesis and what kind of background brings you to Boast.ai?
Yeah, definitely. So, Boast AI is a fintech platform that helps companies identify, claim, and finance R&D tax credits and government incentives. Globally, hundreds of billions of dollars are given in government incentives to fund innovation, but the application process is cumbersome, it's manual, it's prone to frustrating audits, and it takes a long time to get the money. And what we do is we integrate with the company's technical systems and financial systems to pull that data in real time through the year to then identify what they qualify for, how much they get back, and then finance it. So they're getting more money faster for less time and risk. It's a different type of non-dilutive capital, effectively.
Mm, interesting. So um, let me try to respin what you said, and you tell me if I understood this right. And audience, you're also welcome to, this is complex, right? What we're talking about is quite complex. So there are tax credits that governments and various agencies provide, and they're very difficult to apply for, and they're long, time consuming, and you have to wait for it and so forth. What you're saying is you look at the company's financials and other heuristics to figure out what the company would qualify for, and then submit that application based on your evaluation of what they would qualify for, and then finance it, and then you get the credit back to pay back that credit. Is that a good summary of what you said?
That's a fantastic summary, right? Like I was saying, it's a cumbersome process, meaning if you work with your accounting firms, you're always looking back and trying to figure out what work qualifies. And then in between there, once you file the application, you may get audited from the government. And that whole process, it takes like 16 plus months to get the money because you have to spend a year's worth of R&D or product development expenses to then file it with your taxes and then get the money. And we're saying, hey, use Boast, integrate your technical and financial systems. We'll analyze what you performed in R&D. We'll figure out what the cost is and how it qualifies for these incentives, and we'll give you the money now, and then we'll take the fee or the money on the back end when the government pays you. Kind of.
And so I understand the financial signals, like I imagine you integrate with the accounting system like a QuickBooks or whatever and pull the financials from there. When you talk about R&D assessment, what are we talking about? What can you assess?
Definitely project management systems in the tech sense, like software companies, we're looking at their Jira and GitHub, right? So one of the things is people don't time track. And one of the most important things to figure out how much to claim, you need to figure out who spent what time on these projects. But in the product development space, everyone is agile. They're not time tracking. So we integrate with their Jira, their GitHub to see who's spending how much time on projects. And we have automations where algorithms that figure out time tracking on an individual basis, on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. So then what we do is we look at the projects they're working on, we figure out who spent how much time on it, then we map it to payroll, like we have integrations with companies like Gusto and ADP. Then we map it to QuickBooks to look at what other expenses they spend money on. It could be local contractors, it could be hosting costs, and then we automate the application process and everything downstream. So effectively, we're collecting R&D tax credit is a beachhead for us, because my co-founder used to run this at KPMG. He was a manager in the R&D tax credit team, and he said it's a very manual, broken process. It's like at the end of the year, we would go to companies and say, give us your shoebox, but that shoebox is just not your receipts. It's everything you did in R&D. And it's very hard for engineering managers and CTOs to remember the work they did in product development that meets this criteria. And then these big four accounting firms would leverage the R&D tax practice, right, to then do digital transformation consulting for these clients. And so our beachhead is, hey, we're automating these R&D tax credits, but now we're sitting on valuable data. What else can we unlock for them? Can we unlock different types of financing? Can we unlock opportunities for digital transformation, meaning like who you should hire, what projects are generating more ROI? Those kinds of things, right? Help you innovate faster. And those are some of the upsell products we will have in the next couple of years.
Talk to me a little bit about what can be had as R&D tax credit from our world is relatively small companies that are, building products basically. So what can you get as tax credit?
Definitely. So it depends on, where the bulk of this audience is. But if you're in the US, then let's assume you're a startup that has less than 5 years of revenue. You can get about 10% of your product development spend as a cashback. So that means, let's say you're spending $1 million in R&D, you can get $100,000 in R&D credits that offsets your payroll taxes, and you get $100,000 back from the government. That's a very simple way to put it. Every state also has a program. So this was the federal I talked about. Every state also has a program. But the thing is, most states are not refundable. Now, let's assume you're a startup in Canada. In the Canadian government gives you 64% of your R&D spend as a cashback. And in fact, we eat our own dog food. Although I'm based in the Bay Area, we have about 70 people in Canada. The Canadian government is very lucrative in terms of the R&D incentive. So you get 64% of your R&D spend if you're a Canadian corporation as a cashback. And that is huge because look at it. If you're spending $1 million in R&D in the US, you're getting $100,000. In Canada, you're getting $640,000 cashback. And think about it, right? Most companies are not even 5-10% net profit. Most startups are zero. So 100,000 really, if you had to put 100,000 on your bottom line or 600,000 on your bottom line, you're going to spend all kinds of money to do that. So it's been very, very lucrative. And then globally, if you look at it, UK, Australia, France, New Zealand, Ireland, all the R&D tax credits are north of 30%. So in a sense, the US has the worst R&D tax credit program, but something is better than nothing. It's still 10%.
All right. So let's talk about your entrepreneurial journey. Where did you start and how did this come together? It sounds like you, well, you started with some domain knowledge, obviously. This is esoteric stuff. So there is esoteric domain knowledge in your company. How did you get started?
Definitely. So my co-founder and I, we studied engineering together. We were partners in every project. We've known each other since we were like 19. And after engineering, he got into Johnson and Johnson's engineering leadership program, built software there. Then he did a startup. That startup failed. And after the failure of that startup, he felt he needed to study accounting principles. So he went and studied accounting, went back to school, studied accounting. And his unique combination of accounting and engineering took him into the tax credit world, because it's not an accounting problem, it's an engineering problem. The big four was like, oh, you have this unique combination of engineering and accounting. You can help our customers maximize these government incentives for innovation and R&D. After engineering, I pretty much only worked at startups. I worked at two venture-backed startups in product and growth, and they weren't successes, although acquisitions. Then I did a couple other companies. I did Automatically, which was an AI for customer service built on top of Zendesk. That failed. Then I did an AI for sales. It was called Speakeasy, and it was incubated by Bessemer Ventures. That failed. And then Alex and I got together, and he's like, man, there's this big problem here, and you can sort of use that as a beachhead to build a big company. And that problem is that there's hundreds of billions in government incentives for innovation, but it's a manual, cumbersome process, and we can automate it. But once you automate it, you get access to all this data. And I was coming from that sort of AI realm. And so I'm like, yeah, the data is gold here, because no company stitches technical data with financial data and banking data. And if we're able to successfully stitch them together, R&D incentives is the first thing. You eventually then will start unlocking more and more value, and you become the system of record for R&D. And so that was the mission. And we've been, we incorporated the Delaware Sea in 2017. Alex, prior to that, my co-founder, had a consulting firm. So after KPMG, he was doing R&D tax credit consulting. I was a partner in there while I was doing other projects. So we had like this sort of, when you talk about market validation, I often tell other founders is like, do something really manually before you start building software. The best way is to just deliver the service manually and see if customers are happy. Like, to mimic, so the big four is coming at the end of the year. Well, if you had to automate it, but do it Wizard of Oz yourself manually, what would you do? So we had a number of customers. So it was very easy when we incorporated Boast.ai to then move them to the software. So that was how we validated it. We knew we had happy customers on the manual.
And what about getting your first product out? Were you bootstrapping to get to the first product with your consulting service?
We bootstrapped to about almost 10 million ARR. And we just raised a round of funding around Thanksgiving last year. So let's talk through the early part of this. So you bootstrapped, you had validation because of your consulting work, and how much of that consulting client pool became customers of the product? What's really funny is I have this thesis from failed companies, from failing Automatically and Speakeasy. Customers want an outcome. They don't want software. And I genuinely believe that. They're buying software for outcomes. They don't want fancy dashboards and whatnot. So when we had these customers that we were doing manual work for, we just rolled them all over to software. They just get the outcome. They're giving us their data. Like, effectively what's happening is they're giving us their data. We're giving them a check from the government. Right? And so it beautifully rolled in. We continue to build more automation. And the other key learning there is, you can't build an AI company on day one, right? Like, the first thing is you need to get really good at data collection. You need to collect lots and lots of data. Then you need to automate the workflow.
That was my next question. How did you get the data to train your model?
Yeah, so the first step is, the first thing of every AI is like, you need to collect the data, and you need to get the data really well. And sometimes, not sometimes, in a lot of times, in most cases, that data collection may also need to be manual. You need to have humans in the loop to keep interjecting, to keep correcting, and course correcting. Then, you get into workflow automation. So you're automating the collection of that data, still informed by humans. And then you get to a point where you have sufficient data where now machine learning starts to kick in. Like, I'll give you an example from Automatically, which was, we did all our customer development. It was AI for customer service, automating customer responses. And this was 2013, 14, when the term chatbot didn't exist. And we did all our customer development with large enterprises, and everyone said, yeah, you know what, if we had a magic wand, we would just want something to respond to our customers automatically, because our customer support team is not proactive, they're inundated. And we're like, call the company Automatically. But when we tried to integrate with Oracle and Salesforce, they said you got to go through like a 1-year security review. So we panicked. We ran to Zendesk. Zendesk was all open. So we built the app on their Zendesk marketplace. And actually, we were the first chatbot that Zendesk had. It was on the right sidebar called Automatically. And when a question would come in, we'd automatically populate the answer. So when we launched on Zendesk, we had thousands of people signing up. And then I started getting messages, make this thing stop. So I said, what happened here? And I was noticing that the chatbot was responding with gibberish. So we then made it editor approved. It would pre-populate the answer. And still, then they were like, the feedback was, you know what, I still have to edit a lot. And the key learning there was Zendesk had a lot of SMB customers, and they didn't have historical data sets. So we couldn't, accurately do like natural language generation, or like the AI models weren't working as well that we were seeing on, like, say, running a Turing test on JetBlue on Twitter, right? Because they have so much historical data, so you can be 80-90% accurate. And so, we shuttered that. And if I knew then what I know today, I would have realized the same thing. Customers want an outcome. I would have gone to all those customers and said, you know what are your most common questions, and done like an if else lookup table. And
A
that
lot easier, actually. You don't need to do AI for that. You just do a rule-based engine and it works.
Exactly. And what that is what the basics of AI is, right? It's a rules-based engine. But what ended up happening was, I think the other learning from Automatically was, when you're a small startup, do things that don't scale. It's better to please 10 people than to please 10,000 people. But we had so many people sign up that I'm like, we can't even, like, how do I go to all these people and now do the rules? It was just a mess. And so Boast was done very, very meticulously. Like, it's like, okay, do the work manually, figure out all the manual touch points. Then, okay, now how do you get the data? Then rules engine, and now AI sort of thing. So that enabled us to bootstrap very significantly. The other thing also is, when you're a bootstrap company, you don't think of technology. You think in terms of, how do I keep my lights on?
Exactly.
Meaning, how do I keep the customer? You have to keep the customer by any means possible. When you're in an accelerator or venture backed, especially when you raise money early on, your mindset always is like, goes towards experimentation. Oh, how do I build this? How do I build this technology? Like, it doesn't have to be that way. I think early on you got to do things that don't scale. And so then we raised this.
So let me probe one thing here, Lloyd, on Boast. Did you first, when you were doing this manual customer servicing, was it more a rule-based engine than a pure AI?
So first it was like fully manual. The rules-based engine was like literally, what do you call it? The Wizard of Oz MVP, like as Steve Blank calls it, right? Like, it looks like sort of technology, but on the back end, humans are doing it. Then it translated into, there's two elements, right? You're collecting data, and then you need to process that data, and then you generate the outcome. So then we started doing this data collection online, where people can upload everything, or integrations. Then there was the processing, because now you pull this data, you need to normalize it. And the thing is, data that's coming from payroll or bookkeeping is already pretty much, they're ones and zeros. But data coming from your Jira and GitHub, they're not
data. It's not unstructured data. It's not dirty data. It's very clean data.
Exactly. But Jira, GitHub data is unstructured data. Now, trying to figure out what projects qualify and who spent how much time on it. It's the hardest part, making sense of unstructured data. And that project is still sort of ongoing for us to make it better and better. And then
You
the
haven't
third
fully figured that.
yeah, and then the third piece is now how do you look at these data points and automatically write reports for the government, right? Because now that is like writing, it's like natural language generation, and then you go into the realm of like GPT-3, GPT-4. So a lot of
But
experimentation.
your
That's what,
bootstrapping phase was manually delivering how much tax credit would this company qualify for and the application to the government. That's what your deliverable was, right?
exactly. But to the client, what the deliverable was, I got a check from the government and I did not get a government audit.
Interesting. And but you have explained in the beginning that your business model is that you're financing that tax credit. But so the business model was different in the beginning?
The business model, we have two business models. One, I mean, in both business models, it's more or less the same. We take a percentage of the tax credit the company gets after they get it. The financing just helps us bring forward the credit. So what happened was in December or in November, we closed our Series A. We did a 23 million USD Series A. And then in February or March, we did a 100 million warehouse credit facility to lend against those tax credits, because what was happening was entrepreneurs sit on these tax credits for a year and then file it and then get it. And so the financing is a new thing, basically. We weren't financing
Right.
until then.
So initially, you were just providing the service of figuring out how much tax credit people would get and the application generation for that tax credit. And what was the business model? People were paying you a percentage of the tax credit.
They would get back.
Would,
Exactly.
that was
Exactly.
back.
And now
And they were paying that upfront or after they got the tax
after
credit?
they got the money, after the check was in their bank, they would pay us. And that was a great model, right?
That's
Because
a very long cycle though, right? Governments take a long time to process these, no?
that was a very long cycle and a very stressful cycle, because we felt that if we wanted to compete with the big four, because predominantly this is handled by big four, right? Like if I look at it, what Avalara did for sales tax, or what Vanta or Tugboat Logic is doing for SOC 2, we're doing for R&D. Yeah, we're doing for R&D tax credits, because the big four predominantly does R&D tax credits, and they charge you by the hour and whatnot. So we wanted to break that mold. I think I call that in a way value-based pricing, right? Where they get value, then they pay us. It was a very long cycle. It was so stressful, you won't believe, because we're getting paid after the fact. But now we're at a point where like there's so many customers, they're always in the hopper, staggering year ends across US and Canada. So although the cash cycle is long, we're very cash rich as a function of that.
So, but how did you manage the early phase where you had to stay afloat to get paid?
Loans, houses on on bank loans, and credit cards, and very lean team of few people, self-funding it
How
between
many were you?
when we started, it was just me and my co-founder, and then there were a whole bunch more people. Um, so it was hard making payroll, and a lot of credit to my co-founder, because he funded it out of his personal cash flow to to make payroll many times. We also actually got loans where I still remember my house and Alex's house was on the lien for the loan. So it was very hard times. And I think one of the things for us to personally stay afloat was, our wives have been very supportive. My co-founder, his wife is a GC at a public company. My wife's an ER physician at Stanford. They've been very supportive. So I think one of the key learnings is, if you want to build an entrepreneurial venture and you can't eat and you want to also bootstrap, then make sure you have a supportive spouse.
Yeah, well, I mean, somebody has to pay the bills in the family. That's one of the things that we talk about all the time. And what you're pointing to is, bootstrapping with a paycheck, but in this case, bootstrapping with a spouse's paycheck.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't use their paycheck to pay employees and business expenses, but they supported the lifestyle at home, right? The car payments, the house payments.
Somebody has to pay the bills for the family, and it's all very well to say that you have to jump in with both feet and commit fully and all of that, but how do you keep your life afloat?
Exactly, and that was the whole thing. We had been a part of venture-backed failure, so we really pushed to bootstrap. And I often say, if you build a company, a product or service that people want and want to pay for, um, money will follow. And so, a big part of our growth strategy has been community-led growth. Um, we sell to founders, CEOs of technology companies. And so when we started the company as failed founders, we started doing these things called pizza nights. And every time, and it would not be on R&D credits. It would be on some topic, because the CEO of a tech company needs more than just R&D credits. They need fundraising, they need angel money, they need hiring, scaling, all of this. So we do these pizza nights, and those pizza nights sort of kept growing. More and more people started coming, and it evolved into a big community. Today we have about 115,000 subscribers. We never call that community the Boast community. We call it Traction. And today we do 2 webinars a week. We do monthly dinners in different cities. We do conferences, pop-up events. And every major tech CEO from Twilio to Sridhar at Zoho have come to our events and spoken. We donate the money from it, but that community-led growth flywheel has been a big part of our revenue growth. We've doubled pretty much every year, right? And
So
this
how
year also,
long did you have to operate in this very lean mode, depending on your wives and so forth, and really struggling to meet payroll before the money started to flow into the company?
I think till about 2018, 19, 2018, 19, it was tough. Then we could start taking money was flowing in a way where it wasn't the biggest concern. We raised the money, the 23 million Series A in November. When we raised the money, we had 30 people.
November 2020.
Yeah, 2020. Yeah. So when we raised the money, we had 30 people. Now we're over 100 people. Our CTO joined us from Avalara. We have a CMO who's come from 4 acquisitions, 1 IPO. We have a very active board member who just sold her company for $1 billion, and previously she was the SVP at Intuit. And we brought in a really solid team. And so now it's a different story. The business is cash rich.
And you were
Money in
at
the bank.
10 million ARR, not ARR. The ARR is not your business model, right?
The way we look at it as ARR, because for every year a company does R&D, they pay us. So it's recurring revenue, because although we take a percentage, it's very consistent with how much R&D they do. So that's how we model it out. And yeah, so we were close to that. I think like very close to that, and that's where we took. And so
when you raise money.
Yeah, then we raised money, very close to it. I would say, right? We were on the path. We basically had a solid line of sight to hit 10, and so this year we'll have hopefully grow close to double from that.
So how many customers is 10 million ARR? How many customers is 20 million ARR for you?
Yeah, so we're close to 1,000 customers, and 20 million would be around 2,000 customers, more or less. So like we're like in that range, or depending on where you target, right? We're going more and more up market. We're targeting larger and larger companies where that sort of window starts decreasing a little more. Our team is crushing it in the sense that it's funny, if you looked at our new logo metrics from last couple of years, about 60% was referrals, which is insanity.
Wonderful.
And we had only 4 salespeople. Now we've built an SDR team. We've doubled the sales team, and they're all generating. So now referrals is balanced out with sales development, and then other marketing activities, kind of thing, which is good. You want to see that.
Talk about the fintech business. After you raised financing last year, it's almost coming up to a year that you have had money in the company, big money in the company. So you have introduced a fintech business. Talk about how that fintech business is evolving, and what does that do to the financials?
Definitely. So from a fintech perspective, the way we look at it is we're sitting on this trove of technical and financial data, particularly financial data, right? We're integrating with the payroll, we're integrating with bookkeeping, we're able to pull banking data. So the fintech aspect of that is there's all these R&D credits and incentives that people sit on. and they sit on it for more than a year. So the fintech aspect of it is, can we lend you the money? Now, to lend them the money, we need to underwrite a few aspects of it. We need to one underwrite, does this person qualify for the R&D credit? Because it's not like we lend them the money 16 months ahead or 12 months ahead, and then the government says they don't qualify. So that's aspect one. Two, is this business even stable, right? Because if you lend them the money and they go out of business, then we're taking a loss. So those are all the things we're figuring out. We'll have we've had a number of customers in beta on that product, and we'll launch it in a big way in sometime in Q4 or January for the next season. And I see huge potential there because a lot of banks are now coming to us and saying, you're sitting on this unique data set. Can you then, offer them other types? Like, can you offer them credit card, and can you offer them not only lending against R&D credits, but other things? And we have two options here. We can either take the risk, or we can partner with people like a Clearco or a CapChase or a Citibank kind of thing. So those are the things we're thinking through, is like, how much do we do? Because ultimately, as a founder, you want to minimize your risk, right? And the capital risk is hard. So like, we understand the R&D
Capital risk
space.
is very hard, very hard. So
And
now, what does that do to the business model? You were taking a percentage of the tax credit and you were getting paid when they got paid by the government. Now you're financing it. How does that change the business model?
our goal is to not extend it severely, because we're building more and more automations. So our goal is to figure in that financing within sort of our traditional fees. Maybe it may go up a couple points. It improves our net revenue retention significantly, because now financing, even if it adds a couple $1,000s to the ACV, then it improves the NRR, right? So if
Sure.
somebody's financing it, then it slightly improves the NRR from, like, our NRR is 100%, but we have no upsell product. So now, like, okay, everyone is taking financing, then it adds a couple points to that NRR, which
Well,
makes
and
it
not
very.
only that, I think this is where you don't need to take the financing risk. This is something you can bring in financing partners who will provide the capital and take the financing risk, and you just act as the facilitator in between, and you take a couple of points for providing that service to the lenders, and you're done.
I'm a big fan of embedded lending. Actually, I angel invest as well. I'm an LP in about 6 funds, and I'm a big a couple of the companies I've invested in are in the embedded lending space. I like this because I feel like, there's a thesis by Matt Harris at Bain, and he says the first tech platform was the internet, and then came the cloud, which brought intelligence. Then came mobile, which made connectivity ubiquitous. Now it's value exchange. So embedding payments, embedding lending, embedding insurance, all this is huge. And if you look at it, Shopify's payments revenue is soon going to exceed their subscription revenue. So I'm a huge
That's
fan
right.
of that. If you have a customer base, there's no reason why you can't partner with somebody to offer them lending, like, to service those
Well, and
receivables
all
or
the
payments.
banks have this facility to do lending. What they're
Exactly.
lacking is proprietary data sets against which to evaluate lending, applications and so forth. So if you bring that to the table, you can easily get a few percentage points with taking no risk at all.
Exactly. And that is 100%. So that's where we're thinking, is like, hey, do you want it on your balance sheet? Which we don't want it, because balance sheet companies, the valuations are crap. So like, how do you do these facilities where they're sitting on somebody else's balance sheet? They're taking the end-to-end risk, you're doing the underwriting, and you're getting a few points.
Yeah, that's great. Wonderful. Well, I love what you're doing, Lloyd, and thank you for reaching out. I enjoyed talking to you. We will keep in touch and follow what you're doing.
Definitely. Thanks so much. And when this is live, we'll also promote it to our community. Thanks for all the great work you're doing, Smarna. And I love your show, and I've watched and read many blog posts. It's very inspiring, and it takes a village, they say, to build a startup. And collectively, you're building a great community, and hopefully a lot more than 1 million entrepreneurs and successful startups.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for coming. We are going to switch to the entrepreneur pitch section. And we're going to, so by the way, you can call in, obviously, or we're going to put this back up a little bit later after Jess's pitch. Just a quick bit of expectation setting before you pitch today or on a subsequent session. We are on your side. This is a safe working session. There's nothing else going on here besides trying to listen to you and brainstorm with you on what might be helpful in moving forward faster. It's classic acceleration through strategy. I will give you candid feedback of what I see in your venture. You can disagree with my feedback, that's fine. You decide how you want to play your hand. That's what entrepreneurs do. It is, after all, your venture. That's why you're doing it. So, Jesse, you are next.
All right,
What
excellent.
Video?
Let me go
Your
on.
video. There we go. All right, go ahead.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Obviously, I'm really excited to go through this. I'll try to be brief so that there's obviously time to go through any Q&A.
Sure.
So hello, my name is Jesse Hollander, and I'm the founder and CEO of Teleperson. I'm here today to talk about customer service. The Freshworks IPO is really exciting as it's a case in point in why customer experience is such a massive market opportunity. I saw that they had started their product, their Freshdesk product, and then they expanded into their CRM product. So the sort of massive ways to go about solving this need around improving customer service. Despite companies like Freshworks, people still think of customer service as an image of someone, probably themselves, screaming representative into the phone. And Teleperson was launched really to offer a radically different approach to the industry, one that's entirely designed around the needs and context, importantly, of the customer. Next slide, please. So the customer service industry is well tracked. Nearly every day in conferences around the world dedicated to customer experience, to CX, there are plenty of stats which point to the anger, frustration, and challenges which exist on both sides of the phone. One statistic that we sort of noted that nearly 70% of customers switch to another brand because of poor customer service, and that this translates into nearly $500 billion lost every year in the US alone. Now, there are plenty of reasons for why there's bad service, and this $500 billion finding comes from one of our research partners, CCMC, who in their national rate study pointed out to a lot of the challenges that were here that include in part legacy challenges of customer service, sort of entrenched in incumbent players whose customers are screaming, sometimes literally for a better approach. Mm-hmm.
I have one piece of feedback. Don't spend so much time on this slide.
Okay, thank you.
It's taking up invaluable time real estate from your core. Who cares? 70%, yes, lots of money is wasted because of customer service. Don't spend that much time on this pitch.
Okay, thank you. So the outsourced customer service market is huge, right? It's about $90 billion almost every year that's spent by companies to outsource and have other companies manage their customer service. Now, the other relevant markets that we play in include customer analytics, CX platforms, which make up about a quarter of the outsourced customer care market. This multiple reflects in part the legacy challenges of customer service today, which again, really entrenched and incumbent players that are in this market. Next slide, please. Now, we're not the only ones, of course, who realize how much disruption is needed. Indeed, the market is pretty large. Among our competitors in the space, you could arguably split it into two different approaches. Here, I apologize on this slide. We've got one of those. The other one is hidden behind an image. But one is either customer experience platforms, which provide a slew of different value-added services for the companies themselves, many of which may also benefit the customers. The other side is individual tools, right? So shovels, as we call it. That really touch on a specific aspect of customer experience. It could be automating, the ability to contact over omni-channel, or there's one company that provides AI to improve accents that are used in call centers. They're interesting, but ultimately they're really individual solutions. Next slide, please. So the philosophy behind Teleperson is simple, right? Instead of building another tool, another shovel to meet the needs of companies that might also benefit the customer, we wanted to build something that really aligns the interests of both. Now, when we look at customers, they want three things, right? At least they want to contact customer service in a way that's without frustration or terrible experience. They want to engage with companies consistently, right, from call to call. And they also want to discover products and services that are personalized to their needs. Companies want to excite or at least meet the needs of customers continually and consistently. They want to communicate throughout the customer journey, right? Everything from I'm thinking about buying something to I've bought it, I'm using it, to I've used it and I want to give it away, also to generate up and cross-sell opportunities. And what we found was the three things that really combine both of these needs really is around experience, engagement, and e-commerce. And we're aligning these three things through something we're calling the Vendor Hub. Next slide, please. So how does this work? Well, first we have people download the app, and as part of their onboarding, they create their Vendor Hub. The Vendor Hub is really a central place where all of your companies that you specifically use every day will be centered. Now, there's a manual and there's an automated way to build this Vendor Hub. We've got our contract starting in December with Plaid as sort of the automated way to build this up. So once Bob has been onboarded and he's on the app, he can simply say what he needs. Right now at the stage, Bob has a question or he realizes he needs to change something. This is where considering Bob's context is important. Now, once Bob is signed in to the Teleperson app, his profile now is authenticated for all of the companies that he's going to be dealing with. So Bob will just say what his need is. The Teleperson concierge, which is our contextual engine that we're building, this will really serve as a central piece of the architecture. Then the concierge is going to know who Bob is, what his need is, the context and history of his need. And then when considering whether Bob should speak to a chatbot or deal with his need in an automated way or in a human representative pathway, it's going to decide on based on what his need is. So let's say Bob wants to change his flight, right? If we're integrated with Delta, we can do this for him, right? And so the Teleperson voice that says, hey, Bob, how can I help? That same voice and experience is going to allow Bob to change his flight information. So he asks for the change, our system will process it, and then Bob can leave a review. What we want to do is build not just automated or text reviews, because right now the status quo is of those individuals who leave comments, it's maybe a 5-star review, right? Something very basic. What we want to do is build a video element to that. This way we can build, automated highlight reels around specific product needs. Now, if the call is complicated, if Bob sounds upset because we're going to be building or integrating semantic analysis into it, if he arrived, let's say at the airport at 2 in the morning and his luggage is missing, our system is going to be able to direct Bob directly to the representative department that he needs, right? If you've got a customer that's already frustrated, you don't want to then create all of these hurdles for him to get to the right department. We'll bring him directly to that department. Now, on the next screen within the Teleperson app, will be a list of available representatives, again, in that department. He can choose which rep he wants to speak with based on how long that rep has been at the company, their reviews, let's say, and then he could choose again and control his experience, because right now customers are limited to however the companies want to decide what that experience is going to be. So let's say he wants to speak with Mary. Now he clicks on Mary. Wherever Mary is in the world.
I'm not sure that's of any value to me. How do I know whom I want to speak with within Delta? And I don't want to spend time on this. Why would I want to spend time on deciding this?
Yeah, it's a great question. So in your settings, right, it could be, do you care about who you speak with? Or do you just want to speak to the person who's next in line? Most people,
the only thing I would care about is somebody who has dealt with me before. If there is history with somebody who knows my case, then there is value in talking to the same person. Otherwise, what do I care?
Right. So the idea is if we are able to track and manage this entire customer experience flow, we can have that representative in your settings be the representative, but we can have that person up, at the top and say,
right. When you pitch, that's what you should call out is that, okay, I'm working with Apple and I've had this issue and I've had 3 calls with this particular person already, and the next call I would like with the same person instead of a different person. That's of value.
Yeah, and it really points to the vision that we have in creating a personalized experience on what we're building. So a lot of the sort of the products that we're developing around this, from the concierge to the vendor hub to the UZAC. The UZAC is really a content. Instead of you listening to terrible music or advertisements that the company or horrendous just white noise, you can choose and engage in content that you want to listen to, and that actually solves a lot of challenges that contact centers have, as well as the experience that individuals are going to use. The last thing is also this community function, which we feel is going to be really important. Building this out, so there's a lot of value that can come from it. But looking at how we're going to grow the market, of course, we're going to have an enterprise sales team. We're going to have different digital marketing. But I think part of the things that's unique around our solution is this B2B2C network effect, where as we grow our consumers who are downloading the app, each consumer will add their vendors. Each vendor that we'll be working with can then push the Teleperson app to their customers, specifically SMBs, your local pet grooming service around the corner that does not themselves have their own app and therefore relies on a person answering the phone. We can leverage.
So Teleperson is the app that is the front end to the consumer, not a white labeled app of the vendor of the product that is being supported.
Correct. So for the small to medium-sized company that does not have an app or an automated way to engage and engage digitally with their customers, our app can serve that as a purpose. For companies, large banks, let's say, that have invested millions of dollars into their mobile apps, right?
They're not going to accept your brand. They will want their own.
Yeah, well, they're going to compete with ours. So what we're going to do is introduce a little bit of code to build into their app in order to contact and leverage a lot of the technology that we're building. So who are we, right? So I started my career about 15 years ago in cross-border M&A, and then after getting my MBA, shifted in consulting, which I've over the last 10 years, in particular, 5-10 years, I've been doing a lot of growth strategies for companies. My partner Evan actually runs a software company that literally builds the technology used in many of the contact centers, which will make up our partners, and many of whom have been his clients for years, if not longer. Michelle brings 2 decades of leading teams and building out brand strategies for major global brands, which include Lands' End and Coca-Cola. And she's really helped us develop our product and our approach to companies. We're also advised by experts in customer service, both on the research side and in strategy. And then we've got an expert in security, with data privacy being sort of critical to our approach. The way that we generate money now is across different ways, but the main driver of that is going to be a SaaS platform with companies, both SMBs and enterprises, driving that revenue. And the SMB market, we feel, is a lot more attractive, not only because they account for 99% of pretty much every market around the world, but because the need for small to medium-sized businesses is a lot greater in engaging in a digital way and improving their customer service. So just be cognizant of time, this really highlights a lot of the products that we're developing in sort of this tiered revenue scale. And already, just as people on the app, we're already leveraging and providing a lot of value just as free vendors. So today,
before you tell me what you're seeking, I have seen nothing about what you have today.
So we are early. Right now, we've been developing this for the last year, but it's really a very rudimentary beta. Right now, we're looking for the 500,000 in order to generate and build out our MVP. The MVP is then going to enable us to get to a very basic.
This is not a market where MVPs get funded anymore, unfortunately. You're going to have to bootstrap to MVP and validation and get customers and so forth. Unfortunately, the times have changed. Unless you have you've done this before, it sounds like, and if you have investors who have made money off you and are willing to write checks, or you have friends and family who are willing to write checks, that's the only kind of MVP financing you can get. I cannot get an MVP financed randomly from my network with nothing in place.
Okay, we have a demo that's integrated with Plaid and that we can expand on. And that will get us to connecting with an available representative. It will be somewhat artificial at the later stages of our product line, but it would show the concept of what we're building. So this is not
I'll be very upfront. This is not the kind of stuff I would be willing to take on with the goal of financing at this stage.
I see. Okay, no, that's extremely helpful. A lot of
you should do this within your network. You will not be able to finance it outside of your network. You have to do it within your network.
For even seed angels, a lot of the conversations that we've had that have gone past a few of the intro, they've been basically seed founders who, if not lead founders, then at least would join, if we got a lead investor as part of that.
Getting a lead investor is the only thing that matters in financing. Follow investors don't matter in financing. If you can get a lead investor, the lead investor can get follow investors. This is not a problem. But
Okay.
getting a lead investor to lead a round that doesn't have anything, not even an MVP these days, this is why you should do my bootstrap first, raise money
Yeah.
later course on Udemy. I've laid this out absolutely clearly. There's a whole how investors think category of courses,
Mm-hmm.
pre-seed, seed, post-seed, pre-series A. I've laid out all of that. So go do, Maureen, can you provide the Udemy courses list? Go do, it will cost you $10 to buy a course. Go
Yep.
do that course, and you will get a very clear picture of what the industry is right now.
Okay. All
Okay.
right. No, that makes sense. Thank you very much for the feedback, and we hope to
You're most welcome.
get there
See,
soon.
the thing that people do, which I'm trying to prevent, is waste a lot of time and runway by chasing VCs when you have no chance of getting funded. You're just wasting your time. You'd much rather build your product, chase customers, get validation from customers, and get things to happen on the business side, which makes you fundable.
Right.
But if you go chase VCs instead like a beggar, there's no way you're going to be able to get it, and you're going to just waste all your runway. This is something that I've been trying to prevent for the last 15 years. And it's so hard because this myth that you can get financing for an MVP or financing for a concept, it doesn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
Not anymore. It used to happen. When I started, it used to happen. That was in the mid-90s. We are getting to the mid-2020 something.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, validation I know is going to be a lot more important earlier on.
Validation is
And
much more important. And people have figured out lean startups, right? People do lots of bootstrapping before they get to VCs. So VCs have now, they're flushed with companies that are bootstrapped and validated companies. So if they have to choose between funding a bootstrap validated company versus you, they're always going to choose the bootstrap validated company. And every VC rejects 99% of their deal flow, or 99.99% of their deal flow. So you're going to be in that rejection pile, and that's useless.
Okay.
That's a wastage of your time and your talent.
Okay, understood. Thank you very much. This is extremely helpful.
You're very welcome. Folks, if you like what we're doing here, as you can see, I'm not at all sugarcoating feedback. I'm giving it to you exactly the way I see it. And if you like that, please send entrepreneurs along to 1Mby1M, and we'll do our best to help. Everything resource-wise is at 1Mby1M.com. You'll find a terrific blog series, which, as you heard, many people have followed for many years. It's been around for 16 years. So the blog is a very well-known blog and well-read blog. The Entrepreneur Journey series on the blog has been published to some extent in books. We've published a dozen books. And then the whole Udemy curriculum is also based on those case studies and so on. So there's a ton of curriculum material we've done, built on top of these case studies. The whole program is case study based. There's nothing that we do that hasn't been tested by successful entrepreneurs. So I'm not teaching the course alone. I am teaching you the 1 million by 1 million methodology is built on top of the experiences of tons and tons and tons of entrepreneurs, thousands of entrepreneurs, and their case studies are what have, powered the curriculum. So the full acceleration program is 1Mby1M Premium. If you join the program wanting to raise money, don't expect immediately to be introduced to investors. I can introduce you to investors. I can introduce you to 25 investors in 25 minutes. The 1 minute is for me to, put together the email and forward it to the right investor. But before that, there's a ton of work that goes in to get you ready, and in my opinion, to get you fundable before I do that, so such that that introduction makes sense. If I send you prematurely, you're going to get 25 no's from my 25 introductions. That's not good for you, and it's not good for me, because I'm trying to maintain these relationships and this credibility that I send good deals. My deals get funded. That's how I want to keep things. So I don't want to set expectations that you join the program and I open my Rolodex to you and you get funded. That's not how it works. You're going to have to do a lot of studying. That's part of the 1 million by 1 million program, which is why we stress so much on education. So now You can get education through the Udemy courses at a very, very low price point. You can join 1Mby1M Basic and you can get education. That's $99 a month. You can join Premium. You have access to the full educational curriculum. A lot of education is what is needed to help you navigate the early stage journey. And we will help you do that. We don't want you to go out there and break your nose. That's why we are doing 1 million by 1 million. I do have a terrific Rolodex, and I will happily open that Rolodex for you if you're in the premium program, introduce you to people who can help you advance your agenda. And that is absolutely part of the program. Every week you get this kind of sessions, consulting sessions on WebEx in our private roundtables. That's for premium members only. Go to the website and look at the self-assessment. These are the due diligence questions you're going to get from investors. Try to answer them. Make sure you can answer them. The bootstrapping course that is pinned to the top of the blog is a 1-hour course. It's less than 1 hour. It's a terrific course that LinkedIn had commissioned, and it's available for free. That explains to you our philosophy. Please do that. That will help you understand how the industry works and how we work. And then, of course, the Udemy courses. The beauty of the Udemy courses, you can do things very affordably. Udemy runs promotion. There's a promotion going on right now that will end at midnight today, Pacific time, where you can, I think, get our courses for like $12 each, $13 each. So, get 10 courses for like less than $100, and you can get going with whatever you want to learn off them. Look at the courses, look at the list, see what you need to learn, and accordingly get the resources to learn that particular body of material. You can join Basic and you have access to our full curriculum for $99 a month. You're very welcome to do that as well. And then, of course, there's Premium. So go dig around on the website, see which mode of learning works for you, and do that. No problem. Do it whatever way you want to do. That's it. Curriculum is fully described, what we cover, how we work. I talked about case studies already. Investor introduction, I talked to you about how we operate. The policy is also described on the website. Our methodology is bootstrap first, raise money later. Maureen, could you put on the slide, do not go to VCs as beggars, go as kings on top? Because that is the 1M1M mantra. Girish Matrabhutam, the CEO of Freshworks, raised 9 rounds of funding. But the first round was with paying customers, a full product, paying customers. And that put him in a place where VCs wanted to invest in him. And we were doing a lot of publicity for him at that point, so they were known. So I think throughout the journey of Freshworks, every single round was venture-led, not CEO-led. VCs knew about the company, knew it was a good company, and they were coming and wanting to invest. That is the ideal situation for fundraising, not you going out with a beggar's bowl to VCs and getting turned down constantly. I've been there, by the way. When I first did my company in Tarka in 1997, 98, I did have a full product, paying customers, but I had developed my product in India for a very small amount of capital. It was incredibly capital efficient, bootstrap product development. But at that time in Silicon Valley, no one wanted to invest in a company that did product development in India. Globalization of startups had not happened yet. And I had 47 no's before I managed to raise money from NEA. So I've been there. I know what it feels like to get 47 no's, which is why I don't want you to go there. If you can avoid it, do not get yourself into the situation where everybody's saying no to you. It's soul destroying. It's exhausting. It's soul destroying. You want to spend that energy on customer development. All right. Next 3 roundtables are October 7th, 21st, and 28th. You are very welcome to dial in or ask questions in public chat or activate your computer audio. Let me see. Seishu Kumar has questions. Big fan of bootstrapping. For me to join the course, would there be any one-on-one time with you, Romana? Also, can we use this course more as a strategy than a fundraising course? Absolutely. There's a lot of strategy, not just fundraising strategy, but a lot of customer development strategy, business development strategy, positioning strategy. Companies make or break based on positioning. And we are probably one of the best places where you can actually learn positioning. The positioning material we've not released on Udemy yet. That will come later. That you can only access by joining 1M by1M Basic. So if you join 1M by1M Basic, you don't get any time with me. That's a passive curriculum consumption. You learn at your own time, at your own pace, and you study. To get time with me, it's not one-on-one time, but it's similar to what you just saw. I was working on Jesse's project with Jesse. That is one-on-one project-based consulting, and that you get in 1M by1M Premium. And that could be about fundraising, that could be about customer acquisition, that could be about positioning. All of that coaching you can come and meet with me on a weekly basis in the private roundtables. And I will give you pointers, I will give you homework, I will give you stuff to do so that you can advance your agenda. So that's, it sounds like you want, that kind of, whatever you call it, coaching, mentoring, consulting, whatever you call it, that is available only in Premium. So I would suggest, it looks like you need to get into Premium. Okay, other questions? Restaurant tech, that's fine, that's fine. As long as you're in tech or tech-enabled services, you're fine. Outside of IT, information technology and information technology-enabled services, we don't work. We don't work in biotech, we don't work, anything to do with technology and technology-enabled services, we can guide you. Our methodology applies to the entire suite of technology and technology-enabled services, not biotech, not clean tech. If you have other questions about the program, you can also contact Irina. She'll be happy to get on the phone with you, or WhatsApp or Skype or whatever. We take great pride in supporting bootstrapped entrepreneurs. So this is a testimonial from Dan Stewart, who was a bootstrapped entrepreneur in the program. He was in the program for 3 years and succeeded. All right, other questions, folks? Anybody else? Jesse, do you have any other questions?
No, I think I'm good. I mean, the only question I guess would be when we're building out the financial model, we're not hitting profitability until year 3. Are investors expecting, or has there been a shift in expectations that startups should?
Profitability is not the issue. The growth is, if you want investment, you have to go from 0 to $100 million in 5 to 7 years. And if you cannot show that velocity, or that velocity has to be a credible projection, and you have to be able to support that velocity in your customer acquisition strategy, in your product adoption, etc. If that is not a credible trajectory, you cannot raise money. Understood.
Thank you. Yeah, we have to spend more time on the client acquisition, because we're actually hitting 100 million, but a lot of that is assumptions.
It's all assumptions. Right now, the problem you're going to have is that you have nothing to show for it. And you're, the product roadmap that you showed me, this is a very, very large product. And it is very difficult to build a product that large. You have to get in somewhere. The reason Freshworks worked was they had a small product that started generating money and acquiring customers really quickly. Based on that, they could add to that product portfolio. But in the beginning, if you have that larger product portfolio, it's hard. You have to figure out where you enter the market with something that is manageable and something that you can develop an MVP around and start selling. Without that, you're not going to be credible.
Understood. Thank you.
If you go and tell people that I'm going to compete with Salesforce.com on day 1, that's not going to work.
Right. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Who else? Questions? Anybody? All right, folks. Looks like we're done. I will see you next time. And next week, actually, we have an interesting roundtable that is going to focus on bootstrapping with a paycheck. So go ahead, Seshu. Please ask your question. No problem. Maureen is working on this roundtable with DataStax. We are going to do a special session on bootstrapping with a paycheck and answer lots of questions on bootstrapping with a paycheck. Just FYI. You don't have to present here before you get into the course, not at all. You don't have to. You can go straight into the course. You can you can go straight into premium. You don't need to present here. And there's a roundtable next Wednesday. If you sign up right away, you can book a slot to come talk to me on Wednesday also. Maureen, please make sure that Taha, who had pitched here and has just joined the premium program, has a slot in the next Wednesday roundtable as well. He has a very interesting company. Sign up on the website. Maureen will give you the link right here. About next Wednesday, no, you have to sign up first for the premium program. Then you will have the option of signing up for next Wednesday. The Wednesday roundtables are for premium members only. Those are private roundtables. The Thursday roundtables are free roundtables where anybody can come. Okay? Anybody else? Last call. Stephen is saying he loves the Udemy courses. He's been taking the Udemy courses and loves them. That's great, Stephen. Stephen, are you building a company? Or are you preparing to start something? What's your situation? New syndicate, I see. Okay, interesting. Okay, well, good luck, everybody. I will see you next week. Bye.